Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of everything that I've learned from Tony Robbins over the years. It's a cold old day in Sydney. It's amazing how the weather fluctuates from summer to winter to autumn to spring, and it's that time of year that you feel alive and you feel as if the variety that we experience from the weather patterns, from the colours of the trees, the flowers, the activity of the birds, and everything is just so much more special than any other time of the year. Today, what we're going to be doing is going through episode number 20 of 50, but today I decided to set myself a project and to deliver a tribute to Tony Robbins of a whole year, 365 episodes of everything that I've learned from Tony Robbins. And what I'm going to do is to go into detail in terms of the material that I've been able to read, study and understand from two of his key texts, two of his great books, Unlimited Power and Awaken the Giant Within, as well as to go back over time and to remember and recall the Power Talk series and any other videos that I've been able to listen to with intent and with focus from back in the 90s when I first did UPW. I did UPW in 94 and 95, and leading up to that I read his books, I studied the tapes, listened to the tapes over and over again as I was driving to work, and since then I've also been able to deliver 1,600 vlogs of book summaries and personal experiences over the years that I've been able to accumulate over the years, and it's known as OPW, Other People's Experiences. So that's the project, that's the task, that's the challenge that I've set myself. And given that I've already done over 1,600 vlogs, to do another 365 is relatively easy. It should take me a year if I do one a day, which I'm more than happy to do. It's part of my ritual, it's part of my daily prep to live, learn and pass it on. So today we're just going to continue along the lines of what we've learnt and what we've discussed in the past few days. And the first observation and the first thing I want to comment on is the importance of incorporating emotion when you're trying to change or trying to condition a particular pattern. And Tony Robbins here talks about the importance of being totally adrenalized and cortisol, which means to do it with emotion. Because when you do something with emotion, what you're actually doing is you're engaging your emotional brain, your primitive reptilian brain. We've got two types of brain from what I understand. One is a primitive brain, which is purely based on emotion, and we act instinctively based on what we have ingrained and inherited in that particular brain, and we've also got a thinking brain, which enables us to think and respond as opposed to reacting. But Anthony Robbins teaches us through his programs how to condition one's self so that you can do things instinctively. You can pre-condition yourself, you can drill yourself so that when a particular stimuli happens in your life, you automatically react in an animalistic but predetermined way. The other key message that came from the readings that I've done over the years is that we also need to be careful not to overuse tools that work, because if you overuse things, then what happens is they lose their effectiveness. It's important to be effective before you can become efficient, but by the same token, we need to use the tools that work sparingly. And I came across this, and I guess we've all come across this whenever we've gone on a particular diet. When you do a diet, I remember doing the fat diet, which was a calorie controlled, 500 calories a day, and it was remarkable how I was able to lose a significant amount of weight very, very quickly. But what happens is that when you try and do the same diet again at a later date, it gets harder and harder to be able to get the same results, because we become relaxed, we become slack in our application. So there's a key message there. And the other thing that I learnt many years ago, and I experimented with myself, of course, but I also used those experiments on my children. So when my children were learning things, what I would do is I'd get them to take notes and to walk around the house and to shout at the top of their voice and recall the formulas, recall the facts, but to do it with passion, to do it with lots and lots of noise and lots of excitement. Because as we've learned from Anthony Robbins, whatever you do and whatever you couple with strong emotion becomes easier to ingrain, because the synapses that happen between the neurons can turn from avenues to streets to roads into autobahns, depending on how many times you repeat it and how aggressively you repeat it, incorporating emotion. And that's why when we look back over our lives, the worst memories that we have, the greatest pain that we carry, the thoughts that we continue to hold on to, are during times where we've had a stimulus, but our response or our reaction to that stimulus has been very emotional. And the more we overreact with emotion, the stronger that meaning, that feeling, that thought, and the more we hold on to it. So we can use it in a negative sense to create trauma. And what Anthony Robbins says is you can reverse that, and you can use those learnings to create conditioning that is empowering rather than disempowering. So we need to adrenalize, and we need to cortisol, infuse our body with positive reinforcement, so that whatever we want to have conditioned into our behaviors is done so with a scientific method. And Anthony Robbins is very, very big on process, as we all know. And he has a very, very beautiful quote, which is quite profound and something which is brilliant and very, very useful to remember and recall. Because he says, between the promise and the payoff is a process. And Anthony Robbins consults and hangs out with many elite, great sports personalities. And he gets to chat about different things to them. He gets to figure out what makes them tick. And he often uses sporting examples to highlight how behaviours and habits are critical to the outcomes, and the fact that what we practice in private, we get to be rewarded with in public. But it's all about the commitment one makes to themselves, the promises one keeps to themselves, and the process that one adopts and one follows. And you just don't adopt any process. You need to adopt processes that are time tested, that will draw you forward, that will create momentum, that will just keep you going, keep you getting up early in the morning and keep you up late at night. For those who follow rugby league, I had the fortunate opportunity to go to this year's grand final, even though I'm not a supporter of any of the teams. I did have an opportunity to go with my family to watch the Penrith Panthers take on the Brisbane Broncos, and it was an absolute fantastic grand final and an expression of process, where you've got very, very well disciplined teams that continue to do little things with greatness and follow a particular process. But on this particular day, the process that Penrith had been following wasn't paying off for most of the match. But to my surprise and everybody's surprise, they were able to come back and win in the final 2 minutes. Some say it could have been because of the individual brilliance of Nathan Cleary, but I tend to think that it was the brilliance of the overall team, who stuck to their process, stuck to their game plan, and just waited for the moment that will always present itself in an 80-minute game, where they were able to take advantage of that moment when the other team was a little bit more fatigued and a little bit less experienced in grand final football, and to deliver the coup de grace, the killing blow. So process is very, very important, and we all need to believe and to trust the process is the key message that comes from Anthony Robbins. But you need, as I mentioned before, to trust and to use and to embrace a process which is time tested. And for that reason, Anthony Robbins is very, very big on modelling and using OPE, other people's experience, to be able to take and use what works for somebody else, knowing that each person has their own fate, and just because it worked for somebody else doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. But generally, in order to excel and to be great at anything, there's a half dozen things that you need to master, a half dozen things that you need to be better than average in, because when those half dozen things work together, they create a significant step up and exponential improvement in performance. So you don't need to be great at everything. You just need to be better than most in everything. But when you link those things together, the outcome is magnified, is amplified, and is significantly more powerful than what it would have been if you had a few weaknesses or a few chinks in the armour. So between the promise and the payoff is a process. So we're all invited to try and, become detectives in our lives in order to understand what works for us and what works for other people. And as I mentioned before, to experiment, to try things, to see if they work for you, because not everything will work for us. Some things will work better, other things will work less. But the more things we try, the more things we experiment with, the better we're going to be at knowing what works for us and what doesn't work for us, so we can do more of the things that work and less of the things that don't work, and to build an inventory and a capability, and to understand that the art of learning is the attaching of the unknown to the known. The more that you know, the more that you're capable of knowing. The more you've learned, the more you're capable of learning. The more you do, the more you're capable of doing. So we need to invest in a thing called encoding, where we discipline, where we do things over and over again and condition them, so that when the opportunity arises, we don't have to think about what we're going to do. We don't have to think about what it means. We just get on and do it to the best of our ability and make the most of the opportunity as and when it presents itself. And we need to show up when we need to show up, and to understand that we didn't come into the world just to learn things and just to learn more stuff. We need to do more stuff in order to get results. Just because you know something, or just because you've learned something, Anthony Robbins continues to remind us that you don't know it until you start applying it. Many years ago, I worked with a fellow at OTC. His name was John Nematala, and he explained to me, and he came to Anthony Robbins with me back then as well. He explained to me back then that it's important to understand that it's not what you know or who you know. It's all about who knows you and how you apply things. Applied knowledge is what makes the difference between high achievers and people who are just talkers. So we need to apply things. We need to do things. We need to be, as my friend Peter Kalyuropoulos told me as well, we need to be MRs, masters of results, masters of getting things done, masters of being comfortable with being uncomfortable, making mistakes and knowing that those mistakes are a learning. We've learnt what doesn't work, and we have generated and developed further patterns that we can call upon in other circumstances, and to realize that we need to continue to follow the process of honing ourselves, of improving ourselves, of fine-tuning step by step, day by day, just leaning just outside our comfort zone, knowing that the wow, that that life is just a little bit outside that comfort zone, and the more you're expanding, the more you're capable of expanding, the more you do, the more you're capable of doing. So to understand that there is a method to the madness, that you need to continue to stick to your game plan, knowing that at some point in time you're going to get results, and the more effort you put into the purposeful activities that you do, the more outcomes you're going to generate. And you need to be an example to others so that they can learn that doing things and being part of life, being a spectator, is not the answer. We need to be participants in life and encourage other people to participate in their lives so that they can fulfill and live their calling or callings. And we're all different. We're all different from each other, but the reason why we're different from each other is so that we can be different for each other. And to know that momentum is really important, because momentum is what pulls you forward, what propels you in the direction and creates a flatter trajectory in terms of where you want to head, and to realize that you need momentum in order to get over the humps that every road, every path, everything that we do has, and that many people don't have the right amount of momentum because they haven't engaged the right amount of energy and passion and desire in order to draw them forward, in order to push them forward to doing what they need to do in order to get what they need to get. And I'm not suggesting that life is all about getting, but more so that it's all about giving. And the more that we invest in ourselves, the more capable we are of being able to maximize our time on earth to serve God with all our heart, mind and soul, and also to love one another as we love ourselves. So Anthony Robbins talks about the fact that momentum is a forward motion that happens with energy. You can't create momentum, forward motion, without energy. And he uses a bowling ball example. And for those who have been 10-pin bowling, you know that you've got a ball. It doesn't have to be pelted down the alley at a fast pace in order to generate the outcomes that one desires. All you need is the kinetic energy in that ball to just be moving forward, and it will knock those pins flying once it connects with them. And human momentum is basically called emotion, where we move forward with momentum. So in order to generate momentum, Anthony Robbins talks about the importance of always putting yourself into a peak state, not steak. I've got written down steak here. Sorry about that. But you always need to put yourself into peak state to have energy, because just like that boat down there, that ferry boat, the only way it can propel itself forward is by generating energy in that propeller system to push it forward, to push it in a direction that it needs to go. And in our bodies, the battery is your state. And if you're feeling flat, if you're feeling listless, tired, I remember years ago my boss, Greg Gleason, saying, he asked me what my goals were, and I just didn't sound all that exciting or excitable with my goals. And he told me that, you've got weak goals, and that's why you don't have a passion for trying to achieve those things. You need to be able to generate a passion, and the way you generate a passion is by generating energy. And to generate energy, you need to be in peak state, and the way you get into peak state is by moving your body. It's so important. Energy creates energy. I remember on one of Anthony Robbins' tape series, he was talking with an elite athlete, and the elite athlete would tell him that it all depends on how you view energy. That dictates and determines how you use it and how you leverage it. He said that some people view energy as a limited source, and you need to conserve it, and the more you conserve it, the more energy you have. But he says that he sees energy as a resource, a self-generating resource, that the more you use, the more you have. And I remember back then, when I heard that, I found it to be so profound and so powerful, because I was of the mindset that you conserve energy and you just go through life taking it easy and relaxing and chilling out. But the opposite is true. In order to have more energy, you need to use more energy and to push yourself, because science informs us that energy is created by activity. So the more vigorous your activity, the more energy you'll create. So your energy, your state, is your battery pack. So you need to learn, and you need to welcome to put your body into peak state. So in order to have a passion, we need to examine and to find our passion, because how we think, or so we think, so we feel. Now you need to realise, g'day mate, that what we think is what we feel, and also what we feel is what we think. It's a self-fulfilling activity. You have good thoughts, you feel good. You feel good, you have good thoughts. And all of these things come from the way you use your body, the way you engage your body. So we need to find our passion. We need to use good thoughts. And we need to be conscious of the thoughts that we have coming into our bodies, coming into our minds, because it influences in a big way how we see ourselves, how we see the world, and how we interact with the world around us. The other point that Anthony Robbins makes, which once again is another powerful point, is that we need to find our passion, we need to put ourselves into a peak state, but we need to decide to commit and to resolve to get things done and to make the necessary changes, the necessary improvements in our lives that are going to have the desired outputs and create what we need to do. And to do that, Anthony Robbins always talks about the fact that we need to take action. So you need to resolve, you need to commit, you need to take action, and you need to do something right here, right now, that is going to lead you and to an outcome. Starting to get a bit dark here in the sky. Looks like it's going to be a wet morning. So he also goes on to talk about the fact that physics is a study of movement, the study of doing, and another interesting point is that when somebody smiles, their body releases dopamine. So we release pleasure hormones. So if there's a key lesson to take away from Anthony Robbins, is to use one's smiling, to use your smile, because just the act of smiling improves your health, improves you, and is something that not only is something that's good for each person, but it's good for others as well, because smiling has a ripple effect, and we need to smile. We need to smile and we need to laugh more, I guess, is the key message that comes from Anthony Robbins. So I think I'll leave it there for now. It's getting a bit cold on this spring day here in Sydney. We'll see how the day goes, and I wish you all the best. Please, if possible, spread the word on my YouTube channel. As I mentioned before, I do plan on doing a series of videos, 365 videos, as a tribute to the great man Anthony Robbins, and the title of the video series is Everything That I've Learned from Anthony Robbins Over the Years. So follow me on my YouTube channel, Jim's 5am Club, and spread the word, because I think the material that Anthony Robbins has been able to generate over the years is phenomenal, and something that is well worth sharing with friends, family, work peers, and the general community, because it can help people live a better life and live the best life, generating the best outcomes and enabling them to live their calling or callings. Anyway, take care, yassas, bye for now, and I'll get out of this cold wind. Bye.